We've been together for a year now. Happy anniversary. It's insane the amount of time that we've spent together, and I cherish all the different moments we've had. And it's been an incredible journey to see the way that you've evolved and sort of really grown into the way that I believe you could have always been. And I'm talking about the podcast, obviously. Love is not present in my life at the moment. But that's okay. Maybe one day. Good morning. Welcome to the anniversary special of the ALG Show. That's loud. Let's not do that. I told myself I wasn't going to do that. But here we are. Happy anniversary. Welcome in. It's going to be a solo one today. We're going to be touching base on kind of some new stuff. I'm sure you'll see there's a new visual element for the show that it has been added. We're going to touch on some kind of new additions to the show, like I'm sure you see the visual language has changed a little bit. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the things that I've learned from doing the show, and what I hope to do in the show moving forward. And we're also going to touch on my own career as a cinematographer. August is oftentimes a very reflective month for me. It's also the month of my birthday, so I often use August as a marker for a year. So instead of, traditionally you start in January, New Year, New Me, or whatever it is, I can never stick to New Year's resolutions. So I found that by reflecting on the things from my birthday and have that be the year, I feel like I can really sink into different goals that I have and also really properly reflect on the things like the podcast, my own career, my personal life and stuff, which I won't really get into today, but August in general is a month of reflection, and today we're going to be reflecting on the show and my own career. Without any further ado, let's get into it.
As a freelancer, we all dread chasing down money. But not David. He uses HoneyBook. With the help of automated payment reminder emails, he can get paid sooner with a card or bank transfer. Use the referral link below in the show notes for 25% off any plan.
So we've been together for a year now. What have I learned from this experience? I've learned, going into season one, I think was maybe a few months. It was like from August to October. I think a lot of that time was me figuring out the identity of the show, what kind of questions I wanted to ask, sort of the general theme of what I felt was important to touch on. Especially as a filmmaker, creative person, I think mental health is such a big aspect of the things that we do, because naturally it just sort of inevitably becomes a lifestyle that we live, right? And I think putting more of an emphasis on mental health has been really important for me. Also, just like being able to have that conversation with previous guests, like especially that first season, just like really figuring out the identity of the show. Like I'm super grateful for the people who took the chance that first season. You guys know who you are, and I'm extremely grateful to have you guys around. Thank you very much. But I think that's going to be a theme that is going to prevail like throughout the duration of the show. Like it's important, and I think we need to touch on that more. And that'll always be a sentiment that I try to carry across. Season 2 has definitely been a little bit, I want to say stable. Stable feels like the wrong word. I feel like I've been able to find footing for the show. Like I feel like I have a rhythm with putting them out once a month. I feel like that's pretty. It's not overwhelming in the sense that like with season 1 I was putting them out every other week. I don't have this pressure to put something out every other week along with my existing workload. Um, and I think that's allowed me to have a pretty consistent, fresh breath to the podcast because now I feel like I'm setting more an intention with the guests that I'm bringing on and really digging deep into what people are saying and having a really um not like having a less rushed feeling conversation. At least that's sort of the main difference that I noticed, especially going into season 2. Like I felt like less like, all right, I gotta keep an eye on the clock. I gotta get this edit to them. I gotta do whatever, da 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 da. Like I gotta have this out by this day or whatever it is. Like now I can sort of take my time, and it's giving me a little bit more flexibility too. Because even with guests, if they have a lot going, because I work with like the previous guests, they've all been freelancers. Um, Most have been freelancers. There's a few like 9 to 5 people, but um, being able to not have to put something out and like being able to not have to say, "Hey, I need to know what your schedule is this week, otherwise it's not gonna happen," has been a huge breath of fresh air for me. Um, so I think being able to be a little bit more relaxed in these conversations is, I hope it comes across, but I'm able to take a breath and just like, all right, let me chill the fuck out. Like, let me sink my teeth really into this conversation. And as a result, I feel like with guests too, I am a little bit more researched naturally, because I have a little bit, again, given more time, I have a little bit more time to prepare for different conversations. Um, I try to be as researched as possible, but also not too researched. I feel like I don't want to know everything about the guest already before going into a conversation. I think going in semi-blind definitely helps. For example, with some guests, like I hadn't known them for a really long time, and so by being able to have this conversation with them, like I've been able to learn, like, oh, this is sort of their perspective on this thing, or oh, this was kind of that detailed experience of that thing that I saw on Instagram or that sort of thing. And it's allowed me to kind of pick at dialogues that like I feel like I already normally have with people, but the fact that I can document them and share them with people and um share something that I think people can largely benefit from. Something else that I've introduced kind of in the latter half of the season is putting together clips of the show. Um, a good friend of mine, Andrew Ortiz, has been helping me with these. God bless him. I've been fighting to get him on the show, but we've had this back and forth dialogue where he doesn't feel like he's interesting enough, and I fully disagree. I think he's had a lot of really interesting stories from what he's told me anyway, just through chatting over lunch and stuff. Like, I really think he could be a really compelling guest. So if you know Andrew Ortiz, tell him to be on it. I think it could be a really interesting episode. And Andrew, I know you're listening to this. I know you are. If not now, you're going to, because you're going to have to put together clips of this. Please hop on, bro. I've been asking you for a while now. Please, please hop on. I think you'd be a great guest. Let's talk about it. Let's get him on. But Andrew's been a real help with putting together clips, like kind of YouTube Shorts style stuff, and it's been really interesting to kind of see his perspective on the podcast and kind of what he envisioned as far as the creative goes. I didn't really have any specifics as far as the visual language. The main thing was just, hey, this is kind of the vibe of the show. This is kind of some ideas that I have, and he just kind of ran with it. I kind of gave him pretty much free reign, because I fully trust his creative input, and I wanted him to kind of have a spin on what he interpreted the show as, and what he felt was interesting enough to put together as clips. Um, so that's been something really interesting. The only place I'm really putting them right now is YouTube Shorts on my YouTube page, um, and that's sort of been where they live. I just don't know TikTok. I don't use it, so I don't post on there. But I think it's been really integral to the growth of the show. I've noticed like a pretty decent spike in viewership. So Andrew Ortiz, thank you very much. Please get on the podcast. Another person I really want to thank is Gustavo Saldana. He's also another person I've wanted to get on the show. Gustavo, please hop on. I think you'd be a great guest. He is the one responsible for the visuals that you're seeing. He sort of he shot all of this footage, which is I shot a few things, but I can't give myself that much credit. He did a bulk of the heavy lifting. It was shot on a Hi8 Handycam that he has. I'm sure I'm butchering the name, but I know for sure it's a Hi8. It's like a VHS flavored camera. Goes on tape recordings. And I had kind of mentioned it to him. I was like, hey, I want to do something in this style, in this format. Wondering if you could take a day to shoot some stuff. And we shot a lot of this in the same night. I think it was like a few hours that we went out and like just shot some stuff, and it looks incredible, I think. So thank you to Gustavo. The footage is incredible, and I'm now going to use it for this and the clips and anything that kind of relies on a visual for the show. So thank you, Gustavo. Thank you, Andrew. You both have been super helpful in the growth and just the identity of the show. I can't thank you both enough. And both of you, please be guests. Come season 3, I think I want to get you both on. I'm on my knees begging. I think my overall takeaway from the show is just kind of learning from other people's experiences. I think my filmmaking career has kind of been through not a narrow lens, but like a limited lens. Like I've obviously done some G&E in the past. I've done some camera assisting work in the past, but the main bread and butter of my work has been DP work. I got into kind of different roles to have a better general understanding of what it is that people's responsibilities are. But when it comes to those sort of little nuanced conversations that these other people have every day, like, there's there's a lot that I don't understand. Perfect example, Garrett Lee Althon's episode. I hadn't spoken to him in a while, and I didn't realize he had gotten into this special effects makeup world, and I really know nothing about it. And through the dialogue that we had both before, after, and during, I've had a better understanding and a better respect for what it is that he does and many other special effects makeup artists do. And I think learning what he does and learning about sort of different experiences that he's had, as well as everybody else I've had on the show, like, it's been really cool to understand both, hey, this is both what kind of responsibilities they have and what their sort of perspective and thought process is. I think that's been huge in my own career because now I kind of have a little bit more of a nuanced understanding of different roles, at least better than I did before, right? So going into productions, it's been really helpful because now I have a better insight of like, okay, what do they expect from me? What are they also considering? What is the dialogue gonna look like between the two of us, especially with like, that sort of thing, right? Um, and overall, just hearing people's experiences outside of us working together is a pretty cool thing. I've enjoyed our dialogue, and I think all the people I've had are really cool, and I appreciate everybody who's been on the show, both season 1 and season 2. I appreciate you all, and excited for season 3. Besides things that I've learned from doing the show, there's a lot that has changed in my own career. Um, I've been picking up a lot more commercial work, which has been really interesting to see because I'm sort of novice when it comes to working in that type of work. Commercials, branded content, that sort of thing. It's been really interesting to see kind of how that world operates and sort of the different expectations of a DP on those types of projects. That's been a really interesting learning experience, and so far it's been pretty fun for me. A lot of the work has been pretty fulfilling, pretty rewarding, and I've enjoyed it so far. I've also taken a handful of music videos as well. But the commercials and music videos. I would say are like the bulk of my work at the moment. Something that I wish I could have a little bit more work in is narrative, but I feel like that's everybody. I feel like we all hope to work on more narrative work, whether it's in the television side of things, whether it's the short film, the feature, that sort of thing. I feel like I never do enough. Documentary as well. I feel like I never do enough work in those areas, and I hope to pursue that more in the next year. But where I'm at now with music videos and commercials, I'm definitely really, really happy with where I'm at, and definitely couldn't say this around this time last year. I think last year I was having a really difficult time, as we all were with the strikes going on and stuff. Like, I think it's been a weird dry period for a lot of us, and that's been really tough to navigate as well. But on a much lighter note, I think as sort of a byproduct of not having as much DP work, I picked up film photography. I picked up a Mamiya RB67 earlier this year, and that's been really fun to play around with. Learning film as a whole has been really interesting. I've been wanting to get into film for a very, very long time in some capacity. I had disposable cameras initially because I didn't know what my level of commitment would be to spending money on film and that sort of thing, and having to pay for the development and stuff, which my wallet doesn't like me for that, but I like it. and the people that I've done photos for have really liked it as well. Getting into 120 was also something that was not like it. There was definitely a learning curve to it, right? But I think also it wasn't as steep of a learning curve as I had initially expected. What is kind of interesting to me is that the sort of principles of exposure are pretty similar. You have like your shutter speed, your aperture, your quote unquote ISO, which is like the rating of your film stock. It's been interesting how a lot of that skill set applies. And how familiar it sort of feels to kind of expose an image. I've kind of traditionally used a light meter for stuff because I'm just paranoid. And going into film photography, it really feels like plug and play. I feel like maybe this is a thing with the Mamiya, but I feel like I'm a little bit more intentional with everything. It could be that it's film as well, and that with 120 you get like 10 photos. that could probably do it. but the fact that I can like properly set an intention for stuff um, is really cool and something I've really enjoyed. And as a result, after I bought this camera, I picked up a proper like point and shoot to replace my disposables. So I bought a 35 millimeter point and shoot. I've been shooting kind of Portra 800, and I've just kind of carried it with me either on projects or just when I'm out and about. It's been really fun to sort of give it to somebody, point it at them, and have like the novelty factor is huge, and I've really enjoyed it. Um, I I really got big hard by the analog bug, and as a result, I picked up a Super 8 camera about a month ago at this point, and I've used it for a few projects. Can't really discuss them yet because they're not released. But I'm not gonna lie to you, that's been really fun. I think I the camera that I bought was the Canon 514 XLS, which officially makes it my third Canon camera I've owned. And it's a very point and shoot type of Super 8 camera. It's the sound model, so it has a ability to plug in sound. But what I didn't realize was that you need a sound Super 8 cartridge to run it into the camera and to record sound. It's not a sound cartridges are not a thing. So if they make a comeback, I'm ready for it. But for the moment, I can't use sound. I guess you can sync it like to an external device, right? But doing it in camera, I can't do it. So, you know, I'll get them next time, I guess, or whenever sound cartridges come back. Kodak, please. I would love it if you could, for the few people that have sound cameras. If you could, that'd be really sick. Um, but anyways, I've shot a few things on it. Um, it's been really fun. It's been, again, the novelty factor is there. Exposure principles are the same. And just having like another medium to experiment in, because a lot of my work, actually like all of my work, has exclusively been digital, with the exception of a few projects that had the addition of like a VHS or like another Super 8 camera. It's all kind of exclusively been digital. And I think how do I describe it? I kind of described this to someone recently. The tangible experience of creating an image, the physical accountability that film creates is something that I didn't really think I would enjoy, but I wasn't expecting for it to be as gratifying as it was. And I think also like with projects that I've shot on film, I think there's a natural allure to it. Like I feel like like whenever you mention, oh, we're shooting a project on film, there's like an allure to it. Like, oh, they're doing this, da 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 da. At least through conversations that I've had, right? But also something that's been really interesting that I've discovered in shooting Super 8 as well is like there tends to be a little bit more of an artistic integrity from the directors or the production company. I've noticed that there tends to be a little bit more artistic integrity that comes up in the conversation, and I kind of agree. I feel like with digital, it's very easy to kind of be careless about it because it's like, oh, I can just erase the card and I have another. I have a fresh card. I can just kind of shoot whatever on it and just keep doing that. The bigger drives you have, the more infinite your storage could be. Whereas like with film, it's like, all right, we have 2 mags. With Super 8, I think that would get me like what, 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes, 6.5, 6, 7 minutes, whatever. Something like that. I'm new to film. Forgive me for not knowing. But because of the limitations of it, naturally it's like, all right, we have to be intentional with everything. We have to get things that are important And as a result, everything becomes important. You're kind of sharpening the knife to be almost perfect to a certain point. And that has been a refresh that I've kind of desperately needed. I think with other work that I've done, especially with like Red or Airy Raw, the fact that you can change so much of the image after the fact, I think has kind of made me a little bit lazy when it comes to certain exposure and certain composition changes, because it's like, oh, we have the resolution, we can just change it after the fact. Or like with R3D especially, like you can change so much of the metadata. It's like, oh, I'll fix it in post, like it's whatever. The post guys got me when the post guy didn't get me. And I think it's been a refresh and a back to basics sort of mentality that I've needed for a while. And I'm glad to have that refresh in my life personally. Hopefully I get into 16 millimeter the next time we do this anniversary show. I've been in conversations where that was a potential, and then it kind of fell through due to budget restrictions. And, I think in the future I would love to sort of put more of an emphasis on trying to shoot on film. I want to kind of develop my skill set, especially when it comes to 16 millimeter, and then hopefully dive into 35 millimeter at a certain point in time and just continue to refine that muscle, because the bugs bit me. The bugs bit me hard. And I want nothing more than to continue shooting in an analog format. Digital, I think, is great for a lot of stuff, and I think I probably will continue to be doing digital stuff. But man, analog kind of hits different. It's been an incredible learning experience, and I'm really excited to learn more about it and dive into it and really sink my teeth into analog filmmaking. As far as like the future of my career, that's sort of the main thing. I think I want to continue to get more work and to continue to advance sort of my own identity as a DP. I think this past year I've kind of really, I think the foundation was there. The foundation's always been there. But I think especially during the last year, I've been able to sort of refine the way that I communicate with people and how to better translate what it is that I'm trying to say and certain ideas to other crew members, like the gaffer or the director or some other person involved, where I feel like the line of dialogue has been streamlined, and just in general much more refined than it used to be. I feel like my communication was very, at least personally, I felt like it was very lackluster, and I felt like it was, even I was like, the did I say? For certain things. And I feel like now I can understand, I can translate ideas much better, and that's been huge for me, because it's hopefully come across. Like, I feel like ideas make sense, and I can kind of explain it in a way that's digestible for myself and for other people, and that's really changed the tide on my work as well. Another thing that I've sort of noticed just in general for myself is sort of the way that I physically operate the camera. I feel like before I used to kind of like hesitate, especially when it's like a quick sort of maneuver. I feel like I sort of hesitate, and then we go through a couple of takes, and then I get the confidence to do it. Whereas now I feel like I'm instantly like, all right, the camera is properly an extension of myself, rather than me trying to translate to the camera what I want to do. And I feel like now I understand it better, and I feel like I can properly like, I've almost woken up and I've realized that, like, oh yeah, I can just point this where it needs to go, or oh, I can just kind of move this in the way of that it needs to. There's less of a physical limitation that's had there, whereas like before I feel like I used to like hesitate a lot more and like sort of not trust my own decisions, whereas now it's like, all right, full confidence, we got it. And I feel like that's been a general sentiment as well with what's improved over my own career, I feel like I am much more confident with decisions that I make, and I can make them a lot quicker. A lot more complicated decisions, a little bit quicker. That's been sort of the sentiment that I've learned the past year. I feel like it's really improved the workflow so much more. Being able to articulate ideas better and being able to present them quickly and to kind of maneuver them quickly, I think has been really, really huge this past year in my career in terms of like what's sort of improved and stuff. And I'm excited to see what the future holds because I know I want to continue to refine that and I want to continue to push the bounds of like what I can articulate and what I can physically do as an operator, and what I can communicate and how I can communicate with other crew members on set. I don't know how I'm gonna get there, but I know I'm gonna get there at some point, and I think it's just massaging it more and more and really continuing to get that sort of exercise in. Speaking of better communication, I feel like I've had a much better communication with myself. I won't really get into the specifics just because I'd prefer not to disclose certain things publicly, but the main sort of thing that's been better about my own mental health is the way that I communicate with myself. I think as a result of just being able to better communicate ideas and certain things through cinematography, I think I've also been able to largely better communicate with myself and have a better dialogue and a better understanding of the things that I'm feeling. Because I think before, especially last year, like I had a massive level of brain fog and burnout, and I just wasn't understanding what I was thinking, what I was feeling. I was like trying to really stick a square peg in a round hole, but I just wasn't understanding the fact that I had a square peg or that the hole was round. It was just kind of like, why isn't things working? I would get stuck and like frustrated with myself at a lot of things. And I think now, just as like a byproduct of like freelancing, taking on a little bit more personal responsibility this last year, like I think I've been able to clarify certain ideas and to properly build a better dialogue with myself. You know, journaling's been a huge thing. Just sort of running in the morning has been a huge thing. Sort of little things that I have bolted into my routine has been really instrumental to the dialogue within myself, and it's allowed me to better communicate with other people because I feel like with understanding my own emotions a little bit better, I understand ways that I'm presenting myself and I'm communicating better. Hey, like, sorry if I'm off, like that sort of thing. And I think it's allowed me to kind of have better relationships with people and just a better dialogue where the assumption isn't that I'm upset. I think I get that a lot with people who text me. If you guys text me, you know that like I type with the periods, and I should say this now, I'm not mad at anybody. It's just been like a habitual thing from years and years of just, I figured out that like the double space on the keyboard is a period. And just as a habit, before sending a text, I do the double space and then just hit send. It is muscle memory. I am not upset. I am just completing a sentence. But if you do feel that way, please let me know. I don't want you to assume that I'm upset. I'll let you know if I am. And that's another thing with with understanding where I'm at mentally. I'll communicate when something's wrong, because the main sentiment for me has always been like, if there's no issue communicated, then there is no issue. So if I do have an issue with somebody, if there is something that like is bothering me that's on my chest that I want to bring up to somebody, then I'll make the effort to do that. I'm hoping that sort of clarity that I've given myself for where I am mentally has really helped to streamline things when it comes to a dialogue with other people. Overall, I think with my own career, with the show, and with my mental, a lot of it is just refining. I feel like I have the identity for everything. I feel like I know things that I can improve on, things that I maybe want to leave alone. Um, and I'm just going to continue to kind of hack at it, keep chiseling the stone until it's a shape that I like. And then from there, kind of go back, look at different things, sculpt it in a different direction, and kind of go from there. Um, and I hope to continue to do that in the next year or so. Um, that being said, happy anniversary. It's great that we've been together for a year, and I hope to continue to invest in this relationship better. And I hope that my communication has been good with you. Um, and I'm looking forward to the continued growth and refinement of the show, my mental, and my cinematography career. I'll see you guys on the next one.